So what are we to make of Mitt Romney, the man who could well beat Barack Obama to the White House? Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Charles Kupchan. He's a professor of international relations at Georgetown University. Professor Kupchan, just a few weeks ago, most pundits were writing off any chance of Mitt Romney winning the White House. How has he staged such a dramatic comeback in such a short time?
Well, I think there were three key turnabouts in the campaign that put Romney back in the game. The first was his pick of Mr. Ryan from Wisconsin as the vice presidential running mate, and that in some ways galvanized the base. It got conservatives excited. They started giving more money. The ground game built up. The second key point was the first debate. And I think that many people were surprised by Romney's campaign, that it was really quite ineffective, that he seemed almost incompetent, not fit for the job. And then all of a sudden in the first debate, he demonstrates a capability that wasn't there before. And then I think the third event came in the second and third debate, and that is Romney attempted to portray himself as more moderate, as more centrist than he had at any time previous during the campaign. And that, I think, has appealed to the centrist voters that ultimately will determine the outcome, many of them living in the swing states that are so vital to the election.
Who is the real Mitt Romney? If he does win the White House, are we going to see so-called moderate Mitt from Massachusetts, the governor, or are we going to see this candidate that picked, fiscal hawk Paul Ryan as his running mate?
It's a very difficult question to answer because nobody knows. If I had to speculate, I would say on the economic issues, he will move far to the right. That is to say, he will cut the size of government, he will cut spending, he will cut taxes. He sees government as the problem. On social policy, my guess is he will be more of a centrist. Doesn't want to get into big fights over abortion, over immigration, over gun control, over gay marriage, probably will hold back. And on foreign policy, he may try to be George W. Bush too. That is to say, unilateralist, raise the defense budget. I don't think he'll be able to do it because there'll be too much pushback from the rest of the world, and fiscal hawks in his own party are not going to want to see the defense budget go up when they want to see government spending overall cut back.
This polarization that you have currently on Capitol Hill, to what extent does this really reflect the opinions of real Americans? We have this kind of red versus blue narrative that plays out in some US media. How far does that really reflect the reality?
Well, I think that the country is deeply polarized in a way that we haven't seen since the 19th century. So at no point in post-World War II America have we seen the political system so divided between Republicans and Democrats. And what's interesting is it's not just about domestic policy. That's traditionally the era of partisanship. It's also about foreign policy. But I do think that that part of the problem, and one of the reasons it's as intense as it is today, is the economy. And that is that America's middle class has been suffering stagnant wages for the better part of 2 decades. The United States today is the most unequal country in the industrialized world, and that has brought back to life ideological cleavages that we haven't seen since the New Deal era in the 1930s. And so in some ways, the key question for the next president is how to breathe back life into the economy to get America's middle class back on its feet. That is a precondition for trying to ameliorate some of these ideological cleavages and trying to put together a political center that is in some ways the foundation for any governing coalition, be it a Democratic president or a Republican president.
Professor Kupchan, we're very grateful to you for joining us. Many thanks for that insight.
My pleasure.
Many thanks.